This is Kate James for Wartime. Today is Saturday the 20th of May 2017 and I shall be speaking with Frederick Robert Stevens in his hometown of Wartime, and we'll be discussing Fred's experiences during the Second World War, during which in 1942 you turned 18 and joined the Royal Air Force and became a navigator officer who saw active service in Burma, Singapore and India. Firstly, I'd like to thank you today for taking the time to share with us your experiences. And I suppose we'll start by asking if you'll share with us your name, rank and serial number from your time. Okay, so we've got it here. So Fred left as a flight lieutenant.
You wanted a flight lieutenant first?
Yes, please, yeah.
It's 1608734.
Excellent, thank you. So first of all, Fred, shall we find out a bit about you? So when and where were you born?
In Balkan, where I still am, and where my father was born.
Excellent. And about your parents, did your parents or any of your relatives serve in the First World War?
My dad, he was most upset when I told he volunteered for the first at 15 for the First War, and when I told him I volunteered, he went berserk because he knew what he went through.
Yes,
he went berserk. But I did hear later that when he worked on the railways, I heard from his people we worked with that when he heard I got a commission, he was the proudest person in the land.
Because you were very young when you commissioned.
Well, yeah, I wasn't very old.
Yeah, I presume, yeah, quite young. And was your father in the army or the navy?
He was in the army. He was, I can't think of the battles he was in, but he suffered. But I don't think he was injured, but he suffered a lot.
Yeah, from his experiences.
Yeah.
And do you have any brothers and sisters?
I had one brother, 2 years older. He served in North Africa. He was in signals.
Okay, yeah.
He worked and he had a terrible time because the North Africa was one of these places where they would gain ground and then they'd have people taken away and they'd have to fight the same ground all over again. But he did go across North Africa and up through Italy, on the east side of Italy.
So quite different wars, you and your brother.
Yeah.
And did you have any sisters?
Yeah, my sister was 2 years younger. She was in the Land Army.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. The Land Army headquarters in England was in Balkan. She worked there for a while, then she was transferred to London for the headquarters of the Land Army Girl in London. And
so, as a child, you had some links with the military, I believe. You joined the Air Training Corps?
Oh, yeah, I joined the Scouts first, but I liked the ATC uniform much better. And while there, you learnt about navigation, and that's what I decided I wanted to be from the ATC. And I had a good report when I volunteered, and that put me through pretty fast.
Oh, brilliant.
I went for my attestation in I'll say Cambridge. I can't remember whether it was Cambridge or Oxford, because I went to Oxford a lot of times playing cricket.
Ah, so you're a keen cricketer.
Oh yeah, I had some good I wasn't much of a batsman, but I'm a fiery Fred.
And your other interests growing up? I believe you were a good singer.
Well, I was in the choir. Yeah, I had a good treble voice, but not my brother had a better tenor voice. My voice didn't break properly, but I did. But the Balkan Choir sang at the Crystal Palace the night it burnt down.
Oh wow!
In 1936, we were coming away. It was a terrible hot day, and we could see the flames coming up.
Oh goodness!
The Crystal Palace, yeah.
I'm not going to forget that.
No.
So, as a young man, do you remember the build-up to the war? Like, what are your memories from that time?
Well, I know my dad made
Shelter?
the underground, because being on the railway, he got railway sleepers, so it was a real good shelter. And we used to, as soon as the air raid went, we used to go down the shelter, and when it's there, we go back in the house. But one night they forgot I was still down there. So they woke up and they were, "Where's Fred?" They came down, I was still asleep in the shelter.
And do you have any memories of the Battle of Britain at all?
Not particularly, no. My memories was, the Doodlebuds coming along there. They used to come up the valley between Ardilai and Balkan. There's a quite a big valley. They used to follow the railway line, more or less. The railway line is just down there, but they used to follow, and there used to be a battery firing at these things, and the shells would zip over the area.
You're not going to miss that. And before the outbreak of the war, was it one of your first jobs you collected rents on your bicycle?
My first job was, at an estate agent's in Haywards Heath. And there was short of staff, and I was only young, but we had to go round with people wanting to buy houses. We used to go in their car, but that soon, living just above us, the shop, was a couple from Germany. They were Jews, and they worried about what was going on. And I had already did a course of typewriting and shorthand, and so I was able to help them.
So did you help them write letters, or
yeah,
for business, or for them trying to? They were worried about relatives.
Yeah, they were. I was just helping them. Yeah.
And were you aware of why they would be worried as a young man?
Well, they said they were worried about. They told me that their families were there, and they were worried about them. Yeah, but you didn't realise how grave it was, because we were still young.
And then you joined your father on the railway?
No, I didn't. Yeah, the next job was, because I was in the ATC, I had my first flight with the ATC at Gatwick, at the old Gatwick, but after the estate, I went to the where the old airport is, as a progress chaser.
Ooh.
For the people they were repairing aircraft, and I had to make sure all the different people had the pieces they needed to repair the air. That was called a progress chaser. But of course, while we were there, they were having the air raids, and we had to get out quick and go in the woods.
Oh.
The other side of the railway.
Was there much protection in the woods?
Yeah, but then, as I say, there was actually a high-powered worker on the railways, and they were so short of staff, and he said, "Why don't you go to headquarters?" So that's what he did. He got me this job straight away, and this was in the underground control at Red Hill.
And that was supporting the war effort.
Yeah, oh yeah, because they were connected with a detachment from the War Office that were Dorking at that moment. So they used to phone out, "What's the score?" And in the end, sometimes you got so rattled with what they were asking, that you have planes shooting up the trains, and they'd ask, what caused the holes in the roof? You get so rattled. I said, "Rats!" I got called over the coals for that.
And
but you had the whole railway under there, the drivers, the guards, the rolling stock. You had men all about that. That's why you was down there.
And were you there up until you volunteered to join?
Till I was released, yeah. Because I used to have to go to Brighton at nights underneath the station. They were so short of staff, you do a shift at Red Hill, then you go on to Brighton underneath the railway station.
And what were you doing?
Still reporting.
Right.
Yeah.
And so were many of your family in the Home Guard at all? Those who were maybe too old to volunteer for the active service?
I wasn't in the Home Guard before.
No, any of your relatives?
Sorry?
Were any of your family?
My dad was in the Home Guard, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's the question here, what made you join up?
Well, as a youth, living in a village, you did all the things in the years before what scouts do. But so I wanted, when I saw the uniform that the ATC wore, I preferred that, and I joined the ATC in Haywards Heath, and they were the ones that really pushed me forward, and I got good support, but I couldn't attend regularly because I was still on the railway doing shift work, but they explained all that. So as I say, eventually I went to I'll say Cambridge for my attestation, and you say, yes, you've done everything you said you had.
And so that was when you turned 18?
Yeah, I suppose that was the age, yeah.
And you chose the RAF because of the ATC. What we'll do now is we'll talk about your training to become a navigator officer.
Well, I'll take you through. We had to report to Regent's Park Zoo.
Oh.
from all over the country. And
wow.
We ate with the animals, more or less we did. But to tell you something funny, being in a village, you didn't know much about life. And when they got to the officer in charge of it, you'll notice a lot of young ladies outside. So so why can't we talk to them? You showed what a sheltered life we had.
I imagine you had a bit of a life education.
Yeah.
When you joined the military.
Yeah. So, anyway, from there, we went up to Scarborough. That's where the initial training was. There's a picture of them. Of the, and there, you really had a good time, but you had to learn a lot. But being Scarborough, there's 2 bays there at Scarborough, and I went to the lower one, and I got badly burnt in the sun, and I was almost threatened to be thrown off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you find the training hard when you joined the military?
Not really, because before, the school down here was very good, but I did do courses with
Sheffield, your correspondence course.
Sheffield, I did quite well with them. I would say I did maths I'd never heard of down there, but I'm glad I did, because we never had computers in there, and you had to have these other methods of getting things. But the training we had at Hayward Seas, I had my first flight from there in the Tiger Moth, and we did all sorts of things, aircraft recognition and that, and they gave me a really good report.
So did you find then that when you joined the RAF and you were up in Scarborough, you had a good head start compared to some of the other?
I think so, yeah.
Great.
I must have. Yeah.
And then from Scarborough, you headed over to Canada.
Yeah. Before that, we went over to Manchester, Eaton Park. That was the assembly, and Eaton Park, Manchester, was known as the wettest place in the world. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it was.
I've heard of Eaton Park, but not the weather.
It's the wettest. But I did go over to Canada, but we set off in which ship?
SS Andes, I believe. Yeah.
Set off in the ship, but it was so fully loaded, it was absolutely, there was troops hanging from the ceiling on the hammers, and the bottom part, I was unfortunately on the bottom part, and once we started going, it was really rough seas, and you go north, because this is the day of the U-boats.
Yeah.
You go up north, and quite cold, then you find next day you was down in water, because you were zigzagging across that. But the worst part is every lot of people was seasick. And if you were one of those down below, it wasn't very nice. So I spent nearly all my time on deck.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I once that happened, I couldn't stick that. I spent all my time on deck. But I enjoyed it then.
And were there any civilians on the boat?
No.
All military?
Yeah. But we were supposed to go in to Montreal. But because of this zigzagging, when we got to the other side, we were actually going into New York.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah. So we went out to New York, and then we had to get a train from New York to Moncton, which isn't very far. So that's that. But when I got to Moncton, the first people I saw were people from Wartime.
Really?
Yeah,
Who?
the Governor General of Canada, the Earl of Athlone, who lived up the road here, and Princess Alice. They were the first. Remarkable.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
And was this your first time leaving England when you went to Canada via the United States?
Yeah. Yeah, that was yeah. But I wouldn't want to do that journey again.
We'll just stop the recording and we'll just have a look. Welcome back, Fred. So we're in the United States and you're heading north to
Moncton, which is Canada.
Yeah.
And from there we had to go to, I can't remember the name, but the prairies just beyond Edmonton. What was the name of?
So you went to the Canadian Navigation School in Rivers, Manitoba.
Rivers, that's it. Yeah, that's right, Rivers, Manitoba. And that's all gone now, but it was a fantastic place. The railway ran right beside it. But at Rivers, when you're on the prairies, for navigation, it was ideal because there was nothing there. So you had to do navigation.
Yeah.
All there was there was a few silos on the ground. But you did that. I enjoyed that.
And it was part of the Commonwealth Air Training Plan.
Well, yeah, that's right, yeah.
So where were the other people trained from around the world?
Oh, I think some went to South Africa or somewhere. You couldn't really train a navigator here.
Right.
Well, not on long range flight.
So what was the sort of main training that you did at Rivers?
Well, all the initial training, knowing with the weather, knowing all these sort of things, it was just making sure that you knew how to navigate.
So lots of classroom-based training?
Yeah, yeah. We had flying as well. So,
and what planes were you flying in?
I think we were doing it. I can't remember. It wasn't Dakotas. It was some special plane. I can't remember.
And were all the instructors Canadian, or were they from different places?
My instructor was a Canadian, very nice person. Yeah, I've got a picture. Yeah, he was a Canadian. But yeah, you had to learn all about the weather. The difference. You couldn't get very high in the planes we were going, but you did get different wind speeds at different heights and that sort of thing. But you had to bring up your main navigation best because, there was no other aids out there. There was no aids at all.
And how did they recognise the end of this training? Was there a parade? Or?
Oh, yeah, parade. You had a big do. There was 2 courses together, and it was then that you knew who had got commissions.
Ah. So that's when you found out on the parade that you had become an officer.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I believe you weren't able to get your officer's uniform straight away.
No, we had a summer issue out there. It was. Have you got a photo? Yeah.
Well, yeah, we can have a look at the end. I'll make a note of.
I've got a photo somewhere.
So you had did they denote that you were officers with a white armband? Was it?
Yeah.
And was that a common practice or just for this particular?
I think there were just 6 officers out of all the lot.
Oh, a big achievement then.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And so from Rivers, you then had some time to have some recreation before you then went to your next phase.
Not really. We went across. We were a friend of mine, or a friend, he had an uncle in the north of Canada, Kamsack, and we called there on the way over to Vancouver Island. We called there, and that was a really funny time. We used to go to a cinema there, and it was a strange, it was just a sort of a flea bit, but we found out later that the person that showed us into the cinema was a relation of my wife.
Oh, wow. Oh, so Fred's showing us some
Oh,
photos.
these were dressing up on the farm.
Excellent. Brilliant. So, dressing up as cowboys and Indians. Brilliant. We'll take some photos of those for later.
Haven't I got one of my uniforms?
And then, did you also attend a friend's wedding? Was there a wedding that you attended? One of the chaps met a girl and got married on his way during his training?
What's that? I can't read.
And then, so after your leave, you then headed over to Vancouver Island.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we went by train.
Oh, through the Rockies.
Yeah, they had I can't think.
Were you treated as officers? Were you?
There's one railway goes one way, and another one goes down the hill. Banff.
Banff, yes, that's
Banff.
Right. You did. Yes, you did the beautiful trip through the Rockies.
Yeah.
And now you're an officer. Did you feel that you had did you have a first class ticket, or were you treated?
I think you just got in where you could. I don't think it was I may have been just service. I don't know.
And so, what was the training that you did on Vancouver Island?
Oh, that was fantastic because Comox was a definite Canadian airport.
Ah.
Yeah, that was very good.
And overall, like looking back on your training, do you think it prepared you for them when you actually went over to Asia?
Yeah, I think so. It's a bit frightening the first training flights you do, because you're going out over the Pacific. You're away for about 8 hours going round.
Oh, right.
So, we never had computers and that sort of thing. The fact that I did a lot of this extra training at college, I could work them out better than quite a lot.
Mm.
But the way that flights were trained, you went out on these different jaunts. You flew at different heights because you've got different wind speeds at different heights. So that's why they do that. But they were well planned, because we always ended up on the north of America.
Oh.
Yeah. We always ended up there right on the Canadian border.
And were you? What planes were you in?
I can't remember.
So, but not the planes you eventually went to war in. So different planes to the Dakota. So not Dakotas when you were in Canada.
No.
And then you came back to England, and you.
Yeah, we came. The flight back was much better. Not the plane.
Ship.
The ship was much better coming back. But when we got back to Liverpool, it was haymaking time, and of course they were so short of staff. We had 2 days before we got our crew together and fly to Karachi. We were sent down to this farm, to help with the haymaking. But they didn't tell us that when we got on top of the hayrick, there was these Land Army girls out there, and to put it crudely, they used to take the piss out of us.
Were they quite robust?
Yeah, they saw us long little boys. They really. Luckily, there was no real escape unless we had our parachute to get off with.
And before you went to war, did you get a chance to see your family after your time in Canada? Because I've seen one of the letters that your parents received from you.
Yeah, I must have.
Yeah.
Because I did more training in
Leicester.
yeah, when was that?
So after Vancouver, you did your glider towing training in Leicester.
Yeah.
And then glider snatch in flight training.
That was horrendous.
Yeah, it sounds it. What does that entail?
That was a new thing they were thinking of using in Burma.
Oh, wow.
But when you think of what happens? Oh, yeah. What happens? Well, I'll let you read that.
Oh, yeah, so Fred's showing me in one of his books.
It's,
okay. About the snatch. So
there's a rope between two posts, and the plane had a hook, and it would dive down, and the hook would catch hold of the rope, and you would take off. You would more or less stall before you got airborne. They did have lots of accidents to start with, but they used to make the navigators and crew sit in the aircraft just to get used to it. But the noise when the the thing that took
glider.
Yeah, when that made a terrible noise. So
you wouldn't recommend that training then?
Oh no.
Excellent.
The best part about that training is it was down in Zeals in Somerset, which is scrumpy country. That's when we were introduced to scrumpy.
Quite dangerous.
We got cycles, and if you cycle after you've had scrumpy, you've got no control over it at all. So if you went down the hill and there's a corner at the bottom, you went right straight through the hedge.
So I think we're in 1945 now, and you're about to go to your first assignment at the end of your training.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you felt at all?
Sorry, where have we got to?
So
to Karachi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we flew to Karachi. We flew via Italy. We went over the Vesuvius, which you weren't supposed to do, but we went right over it and looked down. But we landed in Italy, and we did have one night in what's the name of the place? The main city. Italy.
in Rome?
Yeah. We had one night there, yeah. That was quite something.
Were you scared, Dad?
Eh?
Were you scared going to war?
I don't know. You were so young you didn't... if I was scared, I wouldn't have volunteered.
Mm.
I think my dad was more scared.
And so your first job was with 31 Squadron?
Yeah,
Or is it 31 or 31 Squadron?
31.
31 Squadron.
Yeah.
And where was this job and what did you do?
Well, we, as I say, we're going out there. We landed at Karachi. From there, we flew on to Rambari Island, which is on the west coast of Burma. It's actually, in the old days, it was a prison island because you couldn't escape from there. But it was captured by the American and British navies because that would be the nearest point to where the fighting was in Burma.
Okay.
So you could get more trips in from there than other points of Burma. But south of the Burma, it was crocodile infested. But the north part of the island was just right for swimming and that. So, but we used to have to fly at least 3 flights a day. They used to last about 2 or 3 hours, and we used to do 2 or 3 hours. But in the monsoon, doing that, it was absolutely terrible because you could, with the monsoon, you had got build up of the cloud quite early, and you didn't used to get one cumulus. You used to get 2 joined together. So once you got through one, you thought good, but you were into another one straight away.
And you were dropping supplies for the ground troops. Is that what the sorties were doing? Yeah,
because the doors were taken off the Dakotas.
Oh.
We had no back doors.
Yeah.
So the thing is, we didn't have enough staff to have dispatchers,
Yes, yeah.
So the cruiser, the navigator, and the not the pilots,
they wouldn't do it.
the 2 of us used to have to go back.
So how many pilots were there for a Dakota?
2.
2, and then there's the navigator yourself.
The Scotsman was the captain. The Irish chap was the co-pilot. The wireless op was Welsh, and I had to keep them in order of being the English.
They're a real product of Britain.
We were a good crew.
And did you stay the same crew during your time in Burma?
In Burma, yeah. Even right down to Indonesia. We went because the Japs were still fighting after Burma. Some of the Japs were still fighting on the way back. They wouldn't give in. So although the end of the war was in November, some of them were, but also some of them, when we used to land in Malaya, would act as ground crew for us.
Oh, really?
They would bring us in, yeah. But we had to collect all the prisoners of war all over Southeast Asia. We had to collect the Dutch women and children because they were captured before they got out. And we also had to fly out all the Japanese comfort girls.
And where were they mainly from?
They were from Malaya.
Malaya.
Yeah.
And so from Burma, you went to, where were you working out of? Singapore or Malaya or?
We were flying. We went to Singapore, then down our last port of call was Jakarta, which is
on Java. the main island and
Yeah.
the capital of Indonesia.
It's
And so, what are your memories of your time with your squadron at war?
we were a happy gang. Yeah. We were all well trained, and you knew that. I would say, if something happened, you knew it wasn't someone's fault. That you were really well trained.
Any particular flights that you remember from your time during the war?
I remember quite a few, mainly to do with the monsoon flying. Oh, yeah. Every now and then, a crew was released to go up to Calcutta, Dum-Dum, to collect a good feed for the Sunday. So we used to go up there to Calcutta, and we used to, I don't know how they go, we used to be in a big room. You could sleep about 6 to a bed. But on the way, you went up there to collect chickens in a big
cage or
straw cage. Yeah. So they were folded up inside the door and flattened out. But on the way back, we ran into a massive storm.
Oh no!
So they said, "Go back and see what's happened." I wish I hadn't. There wasn't a chicken inside.
Oh, no.
I just wondered what was happening underneath. Any ships, all these oven-ready chickens. We weren't very popular because we had nothing, not one chicken left.
Was that the last time they sent you? And what were the sort of, between sorties and any downtime you had, how did you relax or?
Well, you had an officer's mess. You had an officer's mess, and you went swimming and that. Oh, we played football, and that. The air crew usually beat the other people, which they didn't like. But while that on the island, I lost another of my wisdom teeth. I lost one in Canada. They wouldn't come through. They both grew backwards under the skin, and if you let them go, they collect poison there and could kill you.
Oh goodness!
Yeah. So I had one out in Canada and the other one out in
Burma.
Burma, yeah. But we only had one nurse, as far as I know. We only saw one. We used to go swimming on the north coast. You couldn't go down south. It was lovely swimming there. But everyone, of course, bathed in the nude. You didn't have swimming copter. And every so often, at a certain time, this nurse used to go along, the back of all laugh, and then a cry would go out, "She hasn't made up her mind yet."
Poor girl. So you say, were there any locals who worked with you?
Sorry?
Were there any Burmese locals who worked with you on the camp, or?
I think there was, yeah. I'm bound to have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about like some funny incidents. Is there any sort of tragic incidents that you remember during your
Anyone?
tragic incidents?
Well, not affecting me. We once lost 2 planes, all due to weather.
So the weather was almost your biggest
yeah,
enemy.
lost 2 planes. Yeah, that's. I think that's where the maps would come in handy. But I did think they rescued some of them, but I don't know. I don't know their true story, but we lost 2 in one day.
Yeah, that must have been pretty bad for everybody concerned.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Dakota planes and the equipment within them? And
Well, there's not much equipment, but they were fantastic planes. I must say there's nothing to them. But there were 2 lots of Dakotas. Some were troop carrying and they were bigger, but I was never on those. I was on the supply drops. But to get rid of the load on the arrival at the drop-in zone, used to, because there's no doors, used to hang on to a rope and crawl near the door on your bum and hold on to the rope and kick it out with your feet.
Yeah, it sounds pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
And obviously you liked your uniform when you joined the military.
Oh, yeah.
What about, did the uniform change significantly from when you were in Asia? What did you sort of wear on a day-to-day basis?
I can't remember what I was wearing.
Because it was very humid, hot.
I honestly can't remember.
No, it must have been okay then. Excellent. I think we'll take another.
I presume we had a lightweight uniform. I don't know.
Right, we'll take a short break. Great.
I'm going to get a Coca-Cola.
That was fantastic. Even took his daughter on honeymoon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, stayed in the same hotel. Took them round the Taj Mahal.
So who was the viceroy when you were...
Wavell.
Wavell.
He was the last one. People say who was the one that was... Mountbatten. They call him the last one. He wasn't a viceroy. He was only there for a few weeks.
No, that's not true, Dad.
Eh?
That's not true.
What?
He was there. He was there for longer than you think. I looked it up. I've looked it up.
Well,
So, can you remember where you were when you heard the news that the war had ended?
well, I wasn't flying. I must have been on the ground somewhere, probably in the mess, but I don't remember any great celebration. If someone got out of hand in the mess, to keep them quiet, they used to roll them up in the mat with just a head showing.
Yeah. Do you remember, were there sort of parties and...
No, don't remember that at all.
And then obviously you were quite busy helping with the repatriations at the end of the war.
Sorry?
You were busy with the repatriations
Yeah.
at the end of the war.
Yeah.
And then you
I don't think I've ever been demobbed. Because she should be as a VR.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then from Singapore to Delhi, was it? You went?
Yeah. Singapore. Yeah, we went from Jakarta up to Singapore and then on to Delhi. But I lost my crew in Singapore.
And so what was your job in Delhi?
In Delhi, it was the viceroy, flying the cabinet mission used to come out. The missions from the from colonial people.
It was a busy time for India, wasn't it, as they were moving towards partition?
You never knew. They never told you their names or anything. I never knew. But you knew one a name was a little Welshman. You couldn't mistake who he was.
And so, any fond memories of what you got up to in your time in India?
Oh yeah, I would say we went up on the elephant ride up into the foothills of the Himalayas.
Oh, fantastic!
And then just as we used to go shooting here, they used to have people set out at wide intervals while they did a tiger shoot.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you could hear these, but you were sitting up in trees.
Ah, yes.
Not on the ground. You were sitting, but you couldn't see the next chap to you, but you could hear them getting nearer to you. But you were getting a bit worried then, and just as they got to really high pitch, a darn great sorry, peacock flew out from underneath me, and I could have hit the ground. Yeah, that was really yeah. Peacock flew out, but they did get one tiger.
Oh wow!
I couldn't have done it, but the elephant ride was going up there was the worst thing, because you're going like this all the time, and you see the Maho with a big thing in his hand with a big spike hitting the elephant on the ear, which way to go. It didn't hurt them, but you weren't used to that.
Yes.
They got thick skulls. Whichever side they had, the elephant used to go.
And so, how long were you in India for?
I came home.
So you got promoted to flight lieutenant in India?
Yeah, I was. That's why I was allowed. They did for to be the navigator for the Viceroy.
Oh, excellent! Yeah.
Mm.
And so I think 1947.
Because in the logbook it's got someone had signed, not that I knew it, above average navigator VIP work.
Excellent.
That's why I got the job. But I couldn't understand why I knew nothing about this. I knew nothing about how they got my logbook. But I couldn't understand why I was split up from my crew. Because I never had time to exchange addresses or anything.
So were you able to get back in touch with your crew after the war?
Well, I tried to, but I'd lost. I saw something. I've got a letter I had one from my Irish one.
Okay, yeah.
And he wrote and told me that the pilot was working for BA in Scotland, and he was working for the Irish. And he says, I'll try and get in touch when we'll have a meeting in London. But I'd lost his letter, but I found it a lot later. I got his letter there, so we never did meet up. I don't know if he's still alive or not.
But you got your wonderful memories. And so, what happened when you came back to the UK? You left the military?
Oh yeah, while I was serving in India, I had a letter by my dad from the railways. We want you to come back on the railway. If so, you will be permanent staff, and you owe so much money for your pension. When you, I think some people thought, well, who knows where to get it? But I told my dad to pay it, and I'm glad to do it because it helped my pension a lot.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You clearly were good with numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I went down there, yeah.
So you went back to the railway.
Yeah.
And
I couldn't do all the jobs I wanted to do because I wasn't allowed to go. I mean, so I was on in the operating side, you know, dealing with engineering works and new services and all that sort of thing. But I wasn't allowed to go near the track to go out to these engineering. I wasn't allowed because if I had such, I used to fall at anything. I had Meniere's. Do you know what Meniere's?
no.
Well, with Meniere's, it's all to do with your ears. And I could go along and I would hit the ground within seconds. It took a lot. I had several goes at our club there. I had to be brought home, and they used to push me up. This was after Nancy had died. They used to push me up the stairs, and I had to sleep in a absolutely dark room, not a crack of light, and until it went.
And so this ear injury was sustained during your time in Asia.
Well, it was partly caused by that. I didn't have many years and all that in when I was flying and that. This all happened after.
You had a first eardrum, didn't you? In the war?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's just got a big hole there.
Right.
Yeah, it's just got a big hole there.
And then
And that's where my skin.
Oh.
That's where my skin cancer started.
From exposure in Asia as well.
Well, I don't know. Is that mine? No, that's not.
Fred's just having a look at showing me some of his memorabilia. Right.
That's one operation. That was the first one. Look at that. They couldn't sew it together. They had to have metal clips.
Goodness.
That was two years running.
And so
that was done at Brighton. He was fantastic.
So your daughter was sort of telling me that the doctor perhaps thinks that the exposure to the elements, to hot weather during your youth might have contributed to it.
Well, yeah, I was always very fair, but and I was always keen on gardening, so I suppose that's part of it. But it really came out through my ear. When I came back, I was first seen by East Grinstead Hospital, which was the Mackindow, the place where they did surgery for burnt air crews.
Okay.
I did there. I was there.
Yeah.
But I was, I was ticking along all right. But then I went to the doctors once. I found I'd got a big purple patch on my ear, and I didn't like that. I went down to the surgery. Oh, give him some cream for it. So I got in touch with Teresa, and she got me to go and see this East Grinstead. And within a very short time, he says, "We can't do any more for you." He sent me to Brighton, so that saved my life. But if the one doctor that sent me to said, "Give him some more cream," she's now boss of the surgery down there, one of the owners. If she ever turned up there,
You'd have words.
If I go down there, I like to see the nurse. You get more sense out of the nurse than you do some of these doctors. But if I'm really worried about something, I'll ask Robert, and he always gives me a straight answer. He thinks some of this was due to the radiotherapy, because I had 40 radiotherapies.
Right.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
You had 20 after each other. But if I get worried, I always ask Robert, and being a Yorkshireman, he's pretty straightforward.
You get a good answer.
Yeah.
So you've alluded to Nancy. So you met your wife after the war?
Yeah, that was brilliant. I hadn't been home a long couple of days, and my two pals are twins. They lived on the estate as well. They said, we're all going to a dance at the next village, so why don't you come with us? So I said, yeah, I'll come. We went to this dance. Nothing special there. We had quite a good dance. But when we got outside this dance, there was a group of girls from Waltham there. And we both ordered the same taxi. It was a very big taxi. It was a really old-fashioned. So they said, what's going to happen? So there was. Easy. Boys get in first, and the girls sit on your lap. And the one that sat on my lap, I'd never seen before, is the one I married.
Excellent.
She was lovely.
And
it was only an accident that she wasn't a Balkan girl. She was a nurse, and she was a patient from Balkan. Had a lot to do with her because Nancy was a very good nurse, and Nancy said, I've got a weekend off. So she said, what are you doing with it? She said, I don't know. So she said, well, come home with me. So she went home, and that's where she met the Balkan girl, and that's but before that, she'd been a nursery maid, kitchen maid and nursery maid for really rich people.
And I believe also, not long after returning to civilian life, you maintained your links through the Balkan British Legion?
I was... When I got back, Balkan had 155 full members, First World War and Second World War. Lots of officers, colonels, and, well, of course, the Earl of Athlone, he was the chief one. But when I got back, they hadn't got a secretary. No one would do it. 155.
How did they convince you?
I got railroaded. My pals Tom and Will, they said, well, come to a meeting with us. So I did. But when they got to the election of officers, everyone in the room handed up. Fritz Stevens would do it. I hadn't heard anything about it.
You obviously liked it though, because you did it for a while.
Well, I said I'd do it for a year. But I did it for a long time, and then I went from secretary, vice chairman, chairman, and I still belong to it now.
So you were chairman in the 80s, is that right? 1981 you became chairman?
I was chairman, yeah. But the Legion was doing more for Balkan than anything. We had our own football teams, we had our shooting teams, we had to organise all that.
Were there any other veterans from Burma in the Balkan British Legion?
There may have been one, but I can't remember him being in the Legion. I didn't meet someone out there. He lived on the outskirts in Burma. He lived on the outskirts of Balkan. I can't up near Worth Estate. They were up there. And when we were collecting these prisoners of war, there was some on a little island, Labuan, which is now a big holiday place. And when I was, I'm muddled it up. I'll carry on with that. But when I got on at Labuan, we were going through this woods to pick up these troops. And I got through the other side, and someone shouted, "Hello, Fred!" It wasn't. It was a bus driver that used to be on the route between Haywards Heath and Turner's Hill.
I bet you couldn't
But how
believe
did he know me in an officer's uniform? And all that time ago.
Crazy.
Hello, Fred. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Lovely though. Must
Yeah,
have been
it
nice.
was, yeah.
Must have been really nice to have met someone from home. So you did quite a lot with the Legion.
We restarted the flower show and fete, but in those days you couldn't get a marquee. So the two twins I told you, they were both big in the Scouts, and they went round all these different Scouts routes, collecting all the redundant canvas that wasn't being used. And we used to have evenings up in the recreation ground sewing all this canvas together to make, because we could get the poles for the tent from the estate, but we used to have good evenings up there sewing all these things together. But it didn't last, because being old canvas, as soon as there was a storm, we had a storm one night before our big flower show and fete, and it was absolutely ripped to pieces. So we had to transfer everything to the Victory Hall, which is a big place. Yeah.
Excellent.
But we had some fun sewing them together, because the ones doing the sewing were mainly naval, and they got a few stories.
And more recently, you in 2005, you took part in the VJ 70 celebrations up at Horse Guards.
Yeah.
With your grandson Sam.
Yeah, he was very good. He was excellent.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. It was a bit just I'll tell you, when we got to London Bridge, we had to get a taxi to the Horse Guards Parade. But no, we had to get where we were marching from. We had to get a taxi. But all the London taxi drivers they were at every London depot, and they gave their services free.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely.
They were. So we had a free taxi drive. But when we got out and we started walking, Sam was always behind me, but I used to climb up on the...
I heard about this, climbing on the railings.
Yeah, I used to climb up, and I was shaking hands with babies.
Yeah. I've seen some lovely photos.
I was shaking hands with babies.
Which we'll include. And then, so also that year, you had the 100th reunion of your squadron.
The 100th,
Yeah.
That was. Were you there?
Yeah,
you were there.
And
yeah.
Sam. Yeah. And you went up to the. It's not new anymore, but the National Arboretum.
Arboretum, yeah.
They unveiled a plaque for the squadron, or?
Well, no, they had
Stones.
yes, already there, but at the end of the service, they had a fly past, and the last plane to go in the fly past, guess what plane it was?
A Decatur.
Yeah!
Yay.
So I went out in the middle of all of them and I said, "Way!"
Excellent! Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And then...
But the squadron and the commander of the squadron there at the Arboretum, he heard that, what I'd done, and he actually come over and talked to me for a long time.
Fabulous.
Yeah, he was.
Because some members of the squadron came to your 90th birthday, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we got oh, fantastic.
It's signed by all the present people.
So at Fred's 90th, 2 members of his old squadron, serving members currently, came down to give him a signed.
I didn't know about that. She arranged
Fantastic.
it. Yeah.
Fabulous. And has the uniform changed much since you were serving?
They're serving.
Was that similar to your uniform?
Eh?
Is that similar to the uniform you had?
No.
Or is it very different now?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. So good So it's
but
nice.
You still keep in touch with them, don't you?
Yeah, so it's great that all these links that you've still maintained.
But it was a very good party.
I heard. And I think we're sort of coming to the end. So I suppose what would be nice for people who are listening to get a sense of is how your experiences as a young man during the war, how you perhaps feel it's shaped your life, really.
Well, it's bound to have done, yeah. But it never shook my love of gardening.
Yeah?
I've always loved gardening. Even when I didn't feel all that well, I could go out the garden and I would feel well. I've always done that. And I've always had a good garden and vegetables and fruit.
And I suppose, being part of the Legion, you've maintained a link with the military.
Well, yeah, I've always been I still get all their annual
newsletters.
Yeah, I had a good last one. I can't. Yeah.
And I suppose
I hear from have 4.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, that's
your Burma Star Association.
Burma, yeah. But I also have 4 newsletters from my squadron.
And you've actually been back to where you were during the war? You went on a trip to Asia?
Yeah. She'd been trying to get me go out where I served in Burma. I said, no, I don't want to go there. Then she found a cruise that started at Singapore.
Yeah.
And then went to all the places I went to after the war.
Fabulous.
So, mind you, she did it for her own good. Every day she would disappear about 6 o'clock in the morning, go cycling. She was really fit when she came back from there. It was a good trip though, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I suppose, what would be really nice now is if we take some time I can see your medals there and there's lots of photos. If you just take me through. Some of them would be really great.